Hey VC, how's it going? Right, okay, this is a very quick thread response to a video just posted by James Griffiths. And it's basically show 5 albums that you think suffer from that very 80s production sound. So, first up for me, the Star Council, The Cost of Loving. Now, up until this point, I don't think Paul Weller put a foot wrong. You think of the Jam with those great late 70s punk singles, and then into the 80s, some of the best pop music of the 80s. Then he sort of effortlessly went on to the Star Council, which was, I think its strength was that it set up as a collective, so different musicians were coming in for different songs, you know, so it had unique vocalists on certain songs, like Tracy Thorn worked with them, for example, and it really works. And you get to this is in 1987, and things are starting to get a bit stale now. The way I understand it is that Paul Weller had his own studio, Solid Bond Studios at this point. And in the mid-80s, the desk that they were using up to that point was the old Pi desk. So you think about those great 60s Dusty Springfield singles, or you know the first 4 Scott Walker solo albums, they would have all been recorded using that desk. And what happened was that people started to complain that the desk sounded dated, so it was ripped out and replaced with a digital desk. So I need to look into it, but I assume this album would have been recorded digitally in that studio, and you can tell it suffers from that. Some of the material's still great, some of the songs are still up there, but it really has got a very, the word that I keep hearing everybody use is a very thin late 80s sound, and it suffers from that. And this was pretty much the start of the downturn up until he got his solo career back in going in the early 90s, but this was the start of the dip. So that'd be my first choice. Right, from Langley Park to Memphis by Prefab Sprout. Now this is an album that I really like. When people look back at Prefab Sprout's career, they always name albums such as Swoon and Steve McQueen, which are great albums. Those albums have been a highlight, but I've always liked this album, and this probably was their biggest selling record, I assume, anyway. It's got the big single on it, King of Rock and Roll, but I do think it suffers from that late 80s production sound again. Yeah, the songwriting's as good as you'd expect, you know, stuff like Cars and Girls, Hey Manhattan, great stuff, but perhaps this could be a very different album if it had been recorded at a different time. Right, okay, now one of the biggest selling albums of the 1980s, Michael Jackson, Bad. Yeah, this really hasn't dated that well at all. You still hear the songs on the radio now just because they're so familiar, but you know, if you compare this to its 2 predecessors, Off the Wall and Thriller, all 3 produced by Quincy Jones, but this, you think of that lovely fresh sound that even the songs off Thriller, I mean, it's the biggest selling record of all time still, I think. You hear those songs on the radio all the time. Those songs, Billie Jean, Beat It, they still sound fresh, whereas this really does sound quite dated. So perhaps without that late 80s sound, it could be very different. Okay, right, Stevie Wonder, Hotter Than July. I mean, what do you say about Steve in the 80s? I mean, he was, you know, I mean, he is a great artist. You think of that perfect run of albums he made in the 1970s, that run up to Songs in a Killer Life, but you get to 1980, and I do like this album. I do play it a lot. It's got some great tunes, it's some big singles, but I blame this for the start of his downfall. In effect, you know, his 1980s were awful. You know, I Just Called to Say I Love You. You know, I mean, everybody laughs at that song. It is a bit of a joke, but you know, for good reason. You know, and yeah, I say that this is the start of all that. So Hotter Than July. And finally, I've said before how much I like Chaka Khan. I love her stuff in the 70s with Rufus, her solo stuff. Her first solo album is great if you haven't heard it. This was obviously a commercial high for her. Massive single, I Feel For You. Obviously the Prince tune. It was #1 single in the UK. I would perhaps actually make an argument for that being one of the best singles, #1 singles of the 1980s in the UK. But the rest of the album does suffer from that 80s sound. This came out in 84. Great vocals, but yeah, could have been better. Cool, cheers.